This is Trixie's Getting Back on Her Hooves by Shadow Raikou. Chapter 10 Checkmate, Part 2 Critical Move, Part 1 out of how many parts we have to do this. Helping Hope walk slowly through Ponyville streets, head to the ground. He didn't care about the rain. He barely cared about anything. Checker was in the lair she'd made with the Diamond Dogs. Temporary as it may have been, with Trixie effectively ruined, she had bigger plans. Plans something Hoof knew he'd simply help with. Like the good little worthless Blink Flink he was, and he hated himself for it.
What have I done? Where did it all go wrong? How has the bad guy won? Why is it to this world I belong? Where do I begin? This isn't the world I wanted to be in.
He sung sorrowfully. As he looked at the ladder he knocked Trixie off of. Trixie telekinetically moved a large rock up against another one, using several other small rocks as support to ensure neither would fall. She then crawled inside and looked up at the cloudy sky, the wind growing strong. She gave a shiver. The temperature was dropping.
What could I have done? Was my choice wrong? The bad guy is one. Why is it to this world I belong? Did it really matter then? This isn't the world I wanted to be in. I don't know the song that's supposed to be based off of.
She sung, her voice echoing hauntingly across the desert as tears steamed down her face. As she looked at the chariot, the tracks leading away, disappearing where it took off. Tracker looked across her map, the Diamond Dogs standing nearby.
Look at what I've done. How can this be wrong? The better mare has won. This is the world to which I belong. The one where the strongest will win. That's the world I want to be in.
She sung, her voice calm and collected at the beginning, but switching to maniac and emotional the next as she put her hooves on the map to get a closer look.
With all the wrong I've done, am I beyond redemption? Should I be banished to the sun? Or should I be an exemption? I don't deserve the light. It's because of me she lost the fight.
Sung Helping Hoof, continuing his lonely walk down the streets of Ponyville, passing by where Trixie had been captured by the Diamond Dogs, looking over with guilt clear in his face. He lowered his head, looking at his distorted reflection in a puddle.
After all the wrong I've done, at least I found redemption. I felt like I could touch the sun. I've earned their affection. Now I've been cast out of the light, but in a way I won the fight.
Trixie sang, looking up at Luna's moon, struggled to pierce the storm, failing to shine one beam of light on her, only on an owl sitting on a cactus. She lowered her head at memories, looking at her ruined appearance in a pool of rainwater, a few tears falling.
Who cares what I have done? Who cares about redemption? It should always be my moment in the sun. I deserve perfection. I've taken back my spotlight. I have won the fight.
Checker sang, clapping her hooves and being brought some apple cider by Rover.
A toast to me.
She announced in a calm voice as she looked at her reflection in the drink.
To you.
The three dogs muttered, joining the toast half-heartedly. Trixie curled up in her makeshift shelter, doing her best to stay out of the rain.
I can only think of the good I've done, the things I've done right. If my friends are safe, I've won. Who cares about my state?
She sung, but her voice was bittersweet at best.
At least I've atoned for my sin. I can only think of the great things I've done, my accumulated power and might, the victories that I've gladly won. Oh, I love my present state.
Checker sung, throwing the diamond dog several large gems in exchange for parading her around the room like a queen.
Who cares about a silly thing like sin?
I can't stop thinking of the awful things I've done. Of myself, I'm sickened at the sight.
Sung Helping Hoof, looking at his miserable reflection in a window. He looked past the reflection and through the window itself, seeing Twilight, now with the rest of the group, talking about the letter from Trixie, all of them seeming extremely upset, hurt. Helping Hoof turned away, then looked thoughtful before looking back. He finally gave a somewhat determined look.
Maybe there's one victory to be won. One wrong that I can make right. Maybe I can atone for one sin.
Even if this isn't, this is.
That's
The world I want to be in.
Why, it just don't make a lick of sense.
Applejack said, looking concerned.
She's right. Something smells real rotten about this.
Ramadash added, looking at the letter suspiciously. Suspicious, said.
Suspicious.
I know.
Twilight replied, pacing back and forth wordily.
You're right. It doesn't make sense for Trixie to just up and leave without saying goodbye in person.
Rarity gave a nod.
Quite. I may not be impossible to fool, but I like to think I'm decent at reading emotions, and that compassion she showed us just can't be faked.
Fluttershy nodded in agreement.
She's right. There's no way that Trixie would leave us so suddenly.
And that checker was like the meanest kind of meanie pants there is to Trixie.
Pinky chimed in, seeming a little genuinely angry.
Exactly.
Celestia's faithful student replied,
I'd understand if they'd made up, but to suddenly go from complete fury at someone to accepting a job from them? Possible, but unlikely. Trixie even used Midsummer, not Monarch, as her last name like she probably would have if she and Checker had made up. It makes no sense.
And Trixie left her costume behind, along with the gem she got from her grandmother.
Spike pointed out.
That thing means the world to her. I bet Checker had something to do with this.
Said Ramadash, looking very suspicious.
And not just offering her a job.
Twilight nodded in agreement.
I don't know Checker that well, but what I know about her doesn't sound very good. And from what Trixie said, Checker always hated her. I'm worried Trixie might be in some kind of trouble. I can just feel it in my bones.
Applejack added, feeling more and more concerned about her every second.
Yeah, I can too. Alright, that's just my pinky sense.
Pinky announced, her bones feeling weird.
That one normally means you're about to get a letter.
At that moment, the doorbell rang. Twilight blinked and slowly walked over to it. She opened the door to find a letter taped to the side of the door.
What's this?
She said, taking it and opening it. Helping Hoof hid behind a tree, watching over his shoulder.
I'm sorry, Trixie. This is all I can do for you.
Trixie hid behind a rock. Trixie hid behind a rock shelter as powerful winds blasted it, rain stinging her face. The cold didn't help either. Deserts were hot during the day, but at night the temperatures could be very low due to various reasons. Combined that with the rain, and Trixie realized she was in more trouble than she originally thought. Yeah, because Sam doesn't really absorb heat that well.
No. Checker, you knew this was going to happen, didn't you?
She muttered, not putting it past her devious sister for a minute. She knew now what was happening. The area was right, the path of the tropical storm sent to clean up after discord. She gave a scream. She gave a scream as the shelter suddenly collapsed, forcing her to jump out of hiding to avoid being crushed. She grunted against the wind, trying not to be thrown back, but ultimately failing and being thrown hard into a rock. Trixie groaned, struggling to her hooves. She looked around and saw a nearby cave, galloping towards it as fast as her legs could carry her, but having to force herself towards when the wind turned against her. Panting, she collapsed on the cave floor, shivering heavily and dripping wet. It was even colder in the cave, but it was out of the wind and rain. After catching her breath, she looked out into the storm.
Checker.
She stuttered.
How could you do this?
She continued, looking down in shock.
I knew you were a bully, but I didn't think you'd do something like this.
She continued, shivering violently. How could someone do this to their own sister? And
Helping Hooves,
she muttered as she lay down and curled into a ball, trying to find some warmth. She was so cold.
Twat, did we have to take this old wooden chariot?
Asked Applejack over the wind, the group riding in a wooden chariot with Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and Ditsy pulling. Rainbow Dash in front, with the other two mares behind her. Thankfully, the chariot at least had a covering to protect them from the rain, and all three Pegasus pulling the chariot were used to high winds and rain from working on the weather team. The CMS were also present, having absolutely refused to be left behind when it came to their friend's safety. Then when they had been forbidden from coming and left behind, they just snuck aboard and hadn't been found until they were too far out to turn back. Go CMS.
CMC.
Yes, the storm would tear the balloon apart, and a metal chariot risks being struck by lightning.
Twilight replied, looking down at the ground below.
Thanks for coming on such short notice, Ditsy.
Trixie's my friend too,
Replied Ditsy with a smile, but visibly breathing heavily, as was Fluttershy.
If she needs me, I'll help. But how are we going to find Trixie down there?
Rarity called back, looking down at the ground below.
I don't know.
Twilight muttered, They've been searching for several hours now, and nothing. She knew the Pegasi were getting tired. Rainbow was just doing her best to avoid showing it. Twilight was beginning to wonder if that note was even telling the truth.
Just keep calling for her. I'll think of something. Let us try.
Scoodloo stated in a serious tone. As she and the other two came up to the sides, Twilight telekinetically holding on to them, everybody instinctively covering their ears. Trixie had tears running down her cheeks as her shivering got worse. Was she going to make it through this? She could either freeze, waterlogged in a cave, or take her chances out in high winds and rain where it was a little warmer, either of which could mean game over for the show mare as she knew it. Okay, that ends. Story's over.
Well, at least if this is how it ends, I saved my friends.
Trixie said with a smile.
Trixie!
Trixie!
Trixie yelped and jumped almost to the ceiling.
What the?
Trixie, where are you?
The voices yelled again desperately.
What? But how?
Trixie asked, heading out to the front of the cave at a stumbling pace as the calls continued.
Twilight, assuming Rarity hears us, Trixie hears us, how is she supposed to let us know she does?
Asked Rarity, uncovering her ears briefly as the CMC caught their breath. Twilight blinked.
That's a good question.
She said, trying to think of what to do. Then it hit her. She went up front and concentrating, setting off some fireworks.
They came for me?
Trixie asked, dumbfounded.
But how?
She asked, confused.
They just don't know I'm out here, so how? But if they know I'm out here, that has to mean...
Her thoughts were disrupted by a fireworks display.
The fireworks spell.
The showmare muttered, thinking about the situation she was in. Would them finding her really make things worse? They already knew she was out here, therefore they probably knew too much for Checker's taste as it was. Trixie stood up, concentrating, but her magic fizzled out.
I'm so cold.
She stuttered, still shivering. Even moving was beginning to be difficult. She took it off and concentrated again. She shook it off and concentrated again. The spell sputtered out a second time. She growled and tried a third time, putting all of her remaining energy into the spell, setting off several large fireworks outside the cave. She panted, holding a hoof to her head, her head and her horn throbbing.
There she is!
Yelled Twilight, seeing Trixie's fireworks, relief flowing through her as she saw them. Ramadasht nodded and descended down towards Trixie's location. Trixie slowly stepped out from cover into the wind and rain, shaking heavily and obviously worn out.
You came for Trix.
Before she could finish, 2 earth ponies, 2 unicorns, 3 fillies, and a baby dragon had tackled her. The 3 Pegasi only delayed by getting out their harnesses. Trixie's eyes filled with tears as she returned to embrace the heat of its warming her freezing body. After a few moments, she'd recovered enough, both from the cold and the shock, to reply properly.
How did you?
It's a long story. I'm just glad we found you.
Twilight replied, giving Trixie a relieved smile and putting up a barrier spell to give them some protection from the storm.
We'll explain later. We need to get back. The storm is getting worse.
She called over the roaring wind. She could also tell Trixie was freezing. She might even be in early stages of hypothermia. They had to get her warmed up, and quick.
But Checker told Trixie that.
Checker lied.
What?
I don't know. The note said you'd know what that meant.
Trixie gasped, then looked rather guilty.
But Trixie thought, please take Trixie home. Trixie just wants to go home.
So sad. Trixie and the group were in Fluttershy's cottage, which seemed the best place to hide Trixie as was the most remote. After making sure Trixie was okay, Derpy had headed back home to Dinky, but promised to help if she was needed. The CMS had wanted to stay up, but being Phillies, excursion had gotten the better of exhaustion, had gotten the better of them. and they were asleep in Fluttershy's bed upstairs. Zagora was also present, examining Trixie. They didn't want to take Trixie into Ponyville and risk letting Checker know they knew she was there. So Zagora was the closest thing to the doctor they could get at the present. Eat this potion, it will turn you into Bunny, it will not. Angel, Winona, Owlicious, and several of Fluttershy's animals were presently outside, though under cover to protect them from the rain. Secretly keeping watch to make sure no one was spying, it was harder to escape an animal's notice than a pony's.
Trixie doesn't know what to say.
Trixie said, tears in her eyes, as she snuggled into the warm blanket. She was bundled in next to the roaring fire. She gently sipped a cup of hot cocoa that she held in her hooves. Being she was still too weak to use magic at the moment. She'd probably have mostly recovered by morning, but for now she was just happy to be alive.
You braved a tropical storm to save Trixie.
Applejack put a hoof on the mare's shoulder with a friendly smile.
Trixie, you're our friend, and we ain't ever leaving a friend when we think they're in danger. I know that better than a lot of ponies.
She said, blushing, a bit remembering the incident with the rodeo. How had she ever thought Ponyville would be ashamed of her for not coming in first?
Yes, though I wish somebody had remembered to come back on that adventure.
Rarity said, glaring at Rainbow Dash.
Instead, I was sorry, and you magically locked me in a different frilly dress every day for a week.
Open wide, Trixie, if you don't mind,
said Fluttershy in a motherly tone, coming over and giving Trixie a spoonful of medicine when the unicorn accepted it. Trixie turned a little green in the face and swallowed it with a gag.
Thank you?
You're welcome. I'm sorry it tasted nasty, but with what you've been through, we have to be careful.
Fluttershy replied, giving Trixie a warm smile. Trixie nodded, returning the smile.
Trixie understands. Thank you.
Zagora gave a nod.
Trixie, that was a close call, but you shouldn't have any problems at all. A little rest, I believe, would be best. By the time Luna sets the moon, you should be good as new.
Thank you, Zagora.
Gashima replied with a smile.
Kwaheri, Zagora.
Zwaheri, Trixie.
Zagora replied with a smile, packing up and leaving. Trixie then looked at the note that had been delivered to the group after her kidnapping.
Dear friend.
Oh, wait.
Do you want? I can read it in the original.
Yeah.
Dear friends of Trixie, Trixie is in grave danger in the desert to the west of Ponyville. She's in desperate need of your help. Please, save her. A friend. P.S. Tell Trixie that Checker lied. She'll know what that means. P.S.S. Tell Trixie I'm sorry. What does it mean, Trixie?
Asked Twilight, concerned. All they knew was Checker was up to something bad, and it connected with Trixie being abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Trixie gave a small smile.
It means a friend was stronger than Trixie believed he was.
When pony play?
Asked Rover, eager to just end their association with this insidious mare. While as greedy, selfish beings themselves, the Diamond Dogs didn't exactly disapprove of harming others in the quest for wealth. They had a reason when they hurt ponies, at least a good one, in their minds. Checker choosing to ruin ponies out of anger, and they decided to be someone's friend, was something even the dogs considered sinister.
Wow, we're not quite done yet.
Said Checker as she looked at her chessboard.
tomorrow. Key to my plan. I need you three to be my bodyguard, just in case Trixie decides not to hold up her end of the bargain. Presentation is over. I shall hand over the gems I owe you, and you never see me again.
That was heavy robot.
Beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, bop.
Tomorrow is my presentation, the key to my plan. I need you three to be my bodyguards, just in case Trixie decides not to hold up her end of the bargain. When the presentation is over, I shall hand over the gems I owe you, and you will never see me again.
Rover nodded slowly, but didn't particularly trust her. Something just felt off. He could tell something was wrong, and he began to fear for himself and his pack.
Miss Monarch?
Helping Hoof said, coming down with a box held in his magic.
I retrieved your dress, just like you asked.
Checker smirked, taking the box and opening it to find the dress Rarity had made her. Checker looked Helping Hoof in the eyes, making him sweat before giving a smile and turning away.
Good. Perhaps you are not so worthless after all, Helping Hoof.
Helping Hoof cringed at the remark, but hoped it wasn't as correct as he once thought.